registration link. And the recording is started. So welcome, everyone. If you're joining us from Facebook, you are still more than welcome to join us via Zoom so that you can participate in the chat and the polls, sharing your snow-related memories and thoughts, as is today's theme. And we'll go ahead and wait a couple of seconds here, a minute or 30 seconds or so to see, wait for people to join in for a bit. Awesome. I see Trevor in the, welcome, Trevor. Good to see you all. While we're waiting for others to join, go ahead and share who you are in the chat. For example, hi, my name is Emma. Emma, zooming from Phoenix, Arizona. You're welcome to share. Say hello, check to make sure your chat's working, and then we'll get started in a moment. Just make sure to change the chat to sending to everyone if you do that. Hi, Trevor from Toledo. Nice. Okay. Awesome. Hi, Steve from Prescott. Wonder who you are. That's my dad. That's fine. Just to clarify. Hi, Maria. Hi, Kirk. Hi, Katreen. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started while everyone else is joining in. And oh, awesome. Hi, Rebecca. Great. Okay, so welcome everyone to another SciStarter live webinar. We're going to be talking about community snow observations today. So we have a guest with us. Katreen is also a panelist here, so you can see her video. We're going to go ahead and do our normal introductions and talk through how to get started. Trevor, you read my mind. We actually added that in here. So I'm so glad you mentioned that. We'll talk about that in just a second. So feel free to share your favorite snow memory if you have them in the chat. My name is Emma Giles. I'm a program coordinator for SciStarter. I'm also a SciStarter fellow at Arizona State University, and I host these webinars along with a bunch of other things. Roland, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Roland. I'm zooming in from Lebanon, and it's 9 p.m. out here. I'll be your IT support today, and I will post links in the chat.
Awesome. All right. And then our guest speaker, Katreen, can you introduce yourself a bit?
Sure can. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar here. So my name is Katreen Wikstrom Jones. I'm one of the team members behind Community Snow Observations. Originally from Sweden, so excuse my accent shining through here quite a bit probably. I've lived in Alaska now for 10 years. I'm located in Girdwood in South Central Alaska. I work for State of Alaska as a Cryosphere Hazards Scientist. We're part of the Geological Survey. And at CSO, I'm mainly working doing the outreach and communication portions for the project, but also through my work at State of Alaska, we provide a lot of the validation data sets that we use at CSO as well. And well, I love skiing. That's how I got into snow science originally. So there's my little intro.
Awesome. I am also a fan of skiing, and just in case anyone else wants to share their memories or favorite things about snow season, please feel free to put them in the chat. Since this is a webinar, you will both have access to the chat and the Q&A. So if any questions come up, you can go ahead and send them into the Q&A, especially if it has to do with the project, community snow observations, or SciStarter as a whole, citizen science as a whole. We'll be happy to get to them as we keep moving. We'll try to answer them during the webinar, but at the end, we do have a time for Q&A at the end. So if in case we don't answer until then, we will get to it, I promise. So go ahead and share your favorite memories. I'm a skier, so my favorite is usually ski season or getting back to the cabin after skiing and putting my feet in front of the immediate heater, wherever that may be. It's a very fun experience. Trevor, I love your memory building igloos with your family when you were a kid. You built yourself a little snow shelter. Love it. Matt from Portland, are you referring to cold, wet feet being the good memory? I just want to double check there. Or is this a current scenario where you have cold and wet feet? Maybe? Okay, thank you for unclarifyingly clarifying. Steve says sledding, super fun. Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, while anyone else is sharing their ideas or their memories, you're welcome to put them in anytime if you have a sudden like, oh, that's what I remember. But in case, or while we keep moving, we do have a couple questions to ask who we are talking to. So we want to know, have you ever participated in a citizen science project before? A lot of these are about biodiversity, taking a picture, sending it to a database, taking measurements, looking at pictures and evaluating them or analyzing them. There's a lot of different types of citizen science projects. And if you haven't done any, that's okay. Maybe you actually have and you're just not sure about it. But after today, you can have a little bit more interest and to feel empowered to actually get started with this one. All right, looks like most of us have done a citizen science project. So that's awesome. For those of you who said no, well, hopefully after today, we can get you on board with citizen science. All right, have you ever been to a SciStarter live event? That's one of these events. It happens once a week, every Tuesday. We always have these events to chat about a specific project and answer your questions and get you in front of the actual scientists to make sure that we can answer the questions correctly. Awesome. All right, looks like a bunch of you have not. We're so happy to have you here. Welcome. Awesome. Oh, excellent. Thanks for sharing that, Matt. That's awesome. Water monitoring and air monitoring. This is your first SciStarter event or citizen science event. That's awesome. Since 1997. Hey, cool. Awesome. And then lastly, what type of people are you? Are you aspiring citizen scientists? Are you a student? Are you a parent of an aspiring citizen scientist? Educators, librarians, a researcher or a project leader, a bored person on the internet? It's a very valid choice. We always get at least, well, we usually get at least one who's a bored person on the internet. Excellent. All right, looks like we have citizen scientists, students, teachers, researchers. Excellent. Cool. All righty, awesome. All right, we're gonna keep moving. I'm happy to have you all here. And we're gonna go ahead and do some basic background on some definitions and what SciStarter does before we get moving on the actual project. So just to put a baseline as to what we're talking about, citizen science is defined as a collaboration between scientists and those of us who are curious, concerned, and motivated to make a difference. It's how people can make an impact on issues they care about and actually help science. So the big point is it's real science. You're helping actually give real data for real purposes, which is an excellent way to participate in science, right? SciStarter is a method in which you can get involved. So SciStarter is a giant database. It's globally acclaimed, where you can find more than 1,000 citizen science projects from all over the world. There are so many that you can find just based on a topic that you're interested in. We have directions on like how to add in things in the project finder to really go to a project that fits your interest. So you could type in butterfly and find like 15 butterfly projects. I think I looked up penguins once and found at least 12 penguin projects. So never fear, the penguins, they have their own projects, if that was a concern for anyone. Awesome. In addition to SciStarter being the database of citizen science projects, we also have training. So if any of you are ever thinking to yourself, well, I love citizen science, but I feel unsure about participating in some of them, or some of them seem a little bit more challenging and whatnot, the foundations will really help you gain confidence and understand exactly what it is that you are asked to do in citizen science projects. So it's a really great way to just feel self-assured and get some more information on how to best support these projects. You also earn a badge and you can put it on your LinkedIn if you're a LinkedIn person and your other social medias, of course, but awesome. We do have more trainings too. So there's another set of 4 that you can access after you've done the foundations training. My personal favorite is the data literacy. I find it incredibly important. But if you're a librarian or work at a library, we have really great resources for libraries and teachers in higher education, and then data ethics for practitioners. Awesome. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about community snow observations. I'm actually going to stop my share so that Katreen can take over until we come back to our closing out and Q&A. Awesome. Take it away.
Okay, wonderful. See here. Get going. I was just telling Emma I'm a newbie to Google slideshow, so we'll see how this goes. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the Community Snow Observations project. See, you guys cannot see my Zoom buttons, that's right. Okay, good.
You're all good.
Just making sure. All right, so the CSO project, this project is a citizen science campaign to validate snow remote sensing products and hydrological models. This project was launched back in 2017 from a NASA grant, the Citizen Science for Earth Science program. This funding has now expired, so we are in the search for some new funding opportunities, but doesn't mean that the project doesn't live on. We're very passionate about this project, and it's increasing tremendously. This year, we've seen a lot of new users and observations from all over the world so far. So it's really exciting that this project keeps growing. And thank you all for being here today and learning about this project. So behind the project is currently 4 individuals. Besides myself, we have Dave, Hill, and Gabriel Volken are the co-PIs on this project, leading the CSO project. Dave is located in Oregon. He's a professor at Oregon State University, Water Resource Engineering Department. And with him is Nina Aragon, who's a PhD student at this department as well. And Dave and Nina do a lot of the modeling component of CSO that we'll be talking about here a little bit later on in this presentation, and have really amped up our operational products that we're able to provide today using the CSO data. So it's very exciting. I'm up here in Alaska, like I already mentioned, and Gabe Volken is in Fairbanks in Interior Alaska. And we are both State of Alaska employees and also affiliated with Alaska Climate Adaptation Science Center. So all these 3 organizations are currently supporting the CSO project. I want to start off here by really giving sort of credit to our ambassador team. These are individuals that are volunteering a lot of their time to CSO, to promoting the project, but also to contribute data. Some of them have been with us since the early get-go. This project started up here, focused in Alaska. So our early ambassadors were here in Alaska, and then spreading down the Pacific Northwest and all across the world. We now have actually an ambassador in Italy and Europe, which is really excited. It's Claudio Antorni there in the second panel. But yeah, all these individuals, they come from various backgrounds, right? Some of them are hydrologists, they can be avalanche professionals, guides, ski patrollers, educators. Some of them are K-12 teachers and really enjoy implementing CSO into their curriculum. So yeah, just want to give credit to all these individuals. They have really helped us get to where we are today. So first off here, I'd like to share a quote that we got from one of our ambassadors, Aidan Goldie. He said, "Every day I try to remind myself how gosh darn cool snow is. It is not this uniform blanket of white, but has so much nuance and is so critical for life in harsh winter environments." So Aidan here are obviously talking about the smaller scale things that snow impacts, right? Like life that live in winter environments. But when we talk about snow really matters for so many different aspects of our life. We need snow for drinking water. We need snow for irrigation to support our agriculture. Snow also is extremely important as a way of transporting sediments that are crucial for our fisheries and other parts of our ecological habitats. Forest health, as we know, are very dependent on water input, which in many places in the world comes from snow in the wintertime. So that's another aspect. Then, of course, snow matters for hazards. Very rapid snow melt in the spring can lead to flooding. And then, of course, snow avalanches during the winter time. Here are some examples, right? We can think of more probably, and you can as well. This is a model that I find pretty cool. It's a schematic figure of the processes that are included in the community water model. And this was developed by the International Institute for Applied Systems Analysis. And I think it's neat because it kind of takes out their separate out the water cycle components that we learned back in school and probably first grade or so. But then it kind of highlights the various sectors in our communities that are affected by these various components. As we can see, it's all very complex and interrelated. But looking at snow, snow really functions as our water towers, right? It falls, precipitation falls as snow in the wintertime and is being stored in snowpacks. So until the spring and the warmer temperatures are starting to melt the snowpack really kind of holds the water in place in our mountains and makes sure that that gets distributed more evenly throughout the year. So changes to our water towers will then obviously affect our communities downstream. This photo here is from Denver, Colorado, and I think it's such a neat shot, right? Because it shows the city on the flats. It looks fairly warm. I'm not sure exactly when this picture was taken, but probably late spring is my guess. But then you have the really high mountains in the horizon and the snowpacks that still remain there, which are still contributing to water runoff and providing the city with water. So how do we measure this potential volume of water that is being stored in our snowpacks? Well, typically we talk about SWE, and that is snow water equivalent. So we measure snow depth in various ways, and I'll be talking about that here shortly. And then we take that snow depth and multiply it with the percentage, which is the snow density. So if we were to thaw that amount of snow, how much of that in percent would be water? So that's what we're talking about here when we consider snow, and especially for water resource managers, we're interested in the snow water equivalent, because snow can be of various densities, right? It can be very wet and it can be very light. So if you have a lot of very light, fluffy snow, well, that might not actually be a lot of water in the end. So that's why we're interested in the SWE variable here. All right, so now we're going to talk a little bit about various ways to monitor snow, various methods that we use to monitor snow. And the first one I want to touch on here are in situ measurements in field campaigns. This photo is taken from April of this year, when our CSO team was up here, gathered in South Central Alaska, and we were out visiting various sites around Girdwood here, actually, measured snow depth and snow water equivalent. That's us here out in the field this past year. And different kind of field measurements or snow courses have been organized federally and at state level in the United States since the 1930s, actually. And it's a really fantastic record of in situ measurements that we can now look at to start study snowpack trends in the United States. What has been found is that about 90% of these monitoring sites that have been visited during these snow courses show snowpack decline. And what you can see here is the snow water equivalent on April 1st. That's typically the date that we look at for snowpack maximum. Of course, it can vary from year to year, and especially now that we're experiencing some climate change driven decline of snowpack with in some places snowpack melting off earlier in the season, then maybe April 1st will not anymore be the snowpack height, but that's typically the date that we look at for these comparisons. Another way of monitoring snow is by using stationary automated sites. Since the 1970s, there has been snow telemetry sites installed all across the continuous United States. You see one example here in the lower picture from the Beargrass Snowtel site. These are automated, which means that they are collecting various meteorological variables automatically. So no people has to be here at the time for collecting data. Of course, there are oftentimes a lot of maintenance involved. These stations tend to be targets for wildlife, for severe weather, and so on. So they do require a lot of maintenance, which is also the reason why they're typically located in, I would say, somewhat accessible sites. So we're talking low and mid elevation. The other photo here on the slide is from a high elevation site outside of Valdez here in Alaska. That's a site that we monitor at the department that I'm working for. But these sites are pretty rare, right? They're in very exposed locations up on a wind-scoured ridge. And so these are difficult stations to maintain, but we have a few of these as well. And records from these sites are also showing mainly a decline in SWE for April 1st as well. But what they also show that's quite interesting is a change in precipitation form, meaning that more and more precipitation in the wintertime falls as rain. And so you can imagine that that kind of changes water runoff throughout the winter and spring season. It has been found that days that we see precipitation are warming quicker than days that we see no precipitation. So if you live somewhere maritime, like close to the coast, where you oftentimes have temperatures that are lingering just above freezing, you can imagine that that change in warmer temperatures would lead to rain rather than snow. And we see that snow line fluctuating quite a bit in a lot of coastal climates, and it's increasing, going up in elevation. In fact, I'm today actually super sad because it's raining here in Girdwood today. We are at 400 feet above sea level approximately, and we're looking to get rain up to 2,000 feet. And that's just really sad because around here, the mountaintops are around 3, 4, 5,000. So that means rain up pretty high in elevation, which is definitely a bummer. Okay, and then we have remote sensing, another way of monitoring snow. And remote sensing has rapidly developed since the 1980s. We are now today looking at a lot of drone technology, which is really amazing. But we also have airplane and helicopter-based surveys using photogrammetry, using LiDAR, and then of course satellite imagery, which all of these various techniques helps to get a great spatial idea of snowpack distribution. They are typically a little bit less able to give us a good temporal resolution of snowpack changes. Whereas if we go back and look at, for example, those weather station sites, they are more limited spatially, obviously, because they are located in one location, but they have a tremendous temporal record. We can look at change every 15 minutes or so if we want to. But remote sensing is fantastic in terms of getting that more sort of geographic reach. And with drones today, they have really become a really useful tool for a lot of snow research teams that have maybe some established snow study sites where they go to and study change over the course of the winter, and they can go out there and fly a drone each time and really get a nice spatial coverage of their site as well. So today there are a lot of really nice ways of studying snow remotely. And remote sensing techniques are helpful, especially to look at global trends. And sorry, once again, a bit of sad news here, but the global trends are also showing decline, both in snow cover area and in snow cover duration. These figures here are from a publication from Nathaniel Nicola of last year, where he looked at MODIS satellite imagery for just over 20 years and compiled these figures here. And then at last, we will also talk a little bit here about snowpack modeling, which is something we do at CSO as well. We'll touch upon that here later on. But the modeling of various snowpack variables is really helpful for water resource managers to get an idea of how all of these different monitoring methods combine, right? So here are a couple of figures that were requested from the Corps of Engineers, where they were looking at various snowpack variables for some of the regulatory waters. And so looking at SWE and then also lake effect of snow was something that they were interested in for their projects. And SNODAS is a very common snowpack modeling product to use. And we'll look at a comparison between SNODAS and our CSO model products here in a little bit. So I wanted to show you this figure right away here. This is was put together by our previous PhD student, Ryan Crumley, who worked with us before Nina joined our team. And he did some really great work using our CSO observations into the modeling scheme and looked at how using ground observations from citizen scientists, how that could improve snowpack modeling. And so here, the orange marked circle here are the CSO observations, and they are being assimilated into the snowpack modeling routine. We used at CSO a model called Snow Model that was developed by Liston, and it's incorporating various reanalysis products of weather. It's also incorporating SNOWTEL sites, so SNOWTEL information, but then it uses the CSO observations to kind of correct the surface that it produces. So we get surfaces of both snow water equivalent and snow depth, and we can see how the CSO observations kind of function as tent poles in kind of correcting that surface. So what CSO really provides here is the missing piece. We have recognized that we are lacking more information up in high elevation terrain, in more remote areas across the globe. But we're recognizing that there are a lot of people out there both working and recreating in these areas. So that's kind of how CSO got started. So we are recruiting community-based observers or citizen scientists, and they include backcountry professionals and recreationists to help gather snow observations. And the goal of the CSO project is to really improve our understanding of snow depth variability in mountainous regions. I love this photo here, was shared with us from one of our partners, Propagation Labs, where you can clearly see here the classic sort of wind scouring and snow deposition pattern that we see in the mountains. And this is really tricky to recreate in models because they oftentimes can't really incorporate the effect of wind very well. And as we know in the mountains, that shifts very often. So getting information from people on the ground is tremendous help for these modeling products. All right, so how do we participate in CSO? Now we'll get into, maybe you think, the more fun stuff. We just wanted to kind of give you a background first to why CSO got started, why it matters, and now we can talk about how you all can contribute. So it's, first of all, we need some snow to measure, and we want undisturbed snow. We don't want to have, wildlife tracks or snow machine tracks or anything like that where we measure. We want an undisturbed snow surface. But typically in the past, we really geared towards only sort of backcountry areas. But today we are also encouraging folks to measure in their backyards, in sites that are more accessible if you live in an urban setting as well. But anyway, we want undisturbed snow. And then you need a tool to measure snowpack depth. And so the snow probe that is typically a part of the snow safety kit or the avalanche safety kit when you're recreating in the backcountry, it's a really handy tool because you already have it. So we're not asking our participants to purchase any additional equipment in order to participate. So the snow avalanche probe, and as we know, I have one right here. It's still in its original packaging, but it's a fairly slick tool. Sorry, you can't see very well with the plastic here, but it doesn't take up much space at all. But if you don't have one of those, you can totally use a yardstick or a ruler or a measurement tape as well. Whatever works for you, but also something that works for measuring the full snowpack depth, because that's what we want. Then we need you to submit the snowpack measurement in one of our partnering apps. And on this screen here, I'm showing the Propagation Labs SnowScope app. This is a new partnership that was established in the fall. Propagation Labs have developed a probe actually that measures snow hardness. But they also have a very neat app, and it's called SnowScope as well. And they have worked with us to develop a very quick way of submitting snow height. So when you install this app on your phone, it's literally on the home screen, there's one button that has either snow pit or snow height. So you click the snow height, and then you get straight to that screen where you enter the snow height measurement. And that's in centimeters, because that's the sort of international standard that we use. So it takes about 30 seconds to pull out the probe, make a measurement, and submit in propagation labs. And so what we typically recommend is for folks to submit an average of 3 measurements within a radius of about 1 meter. And that's to account for a little bit of variability under the snow surface. So, see that you have a circle that evens out on fairly, flat ground where you're at. There can be variable snow around you, but where you measure, you want it to be somewhat even. Take 3 measurements, full snowpack depths all the way down to the ground, and then average of those 3. And that will be the measurement that you will submit in one of our apps. Here's the QR code for SnowScope, so you can easily get to the download page, both for Android and iOS. But I want to highlight too, we have other partners that we're working with. SnowPilot has been one of our partners for many, many years now. And we're very grateful for this partnership because SnowPilot is a desktop software that is very popular among snow professionals. So they, submit snow pit profiles in SnowPilot. And one of the variables that they will enter when they're entering the snow pit is snowpack height. So that's the metric that we are gathering from SnowPilot is just the snowpack height. We don't get other information from SnowPilot. Then also SciStarter.org and also RegOps, which is an app developed in Norway, getting more and more popular in Europe, but we get tons of measurements from Norway thanks to the RegOps partnership. But so we ingest data from all of these partnering apps and that populate our database. So you can pick whichever app works best for you. All right, so if you are a lucky individual and live in a place where you get a lot of snow, this might be a problem that you will encounter towards, end of February into March. The fact that the snowpack is deeper than your probe, right? That's a pain in the butt. Sorry, my language. Could be if it's very deep. It will take a little bit longer then to submit your measurement. But so what we recommend is to dig down, right? So you can make sure that you have the snow probe all the way down to the ground. As you can see on the right figure, you see the probe poking the ground surface. And then the height of your probe. So let's say it's 300 centimeters. And then you'll measure the height above the probe up to the snow surface. And that will be the total height, 320 in this example, will be the measurement that you will submit to into one of these apps that we're working with. I should mention also, sorry, I forgot to mention earlier, in the past, we have worked with Mountain Hub. Some of you might be familiar with that app. That app got retired here this fall. We took over the ownership of Mountain Hub a couple of years ago, but recognized that there were others that could do a better job developing apps, and we found Propagation Labs. And so we decided, let's skip Mountain Hub. Propagation Labs is a much more easy tool to use, and they had other features that we were really interested in. So that's why we left Mountain Hub. So that app is no longer functioning. I just wanted to point that out here in case some of you have been using Mountain Hub or thinking about using Mountain Hub. Okay. Yes, like I mentioned earlier, we do also encourage folks to submit measurements in urban settings as well, in areas that are more accessible to you. And here's a quote from one of our ambassadors on the East Coast, Sarah Salad. She's a educator. She is a home educator too with her kids. She does a lot of outreach to youth in particular on the East Coast. But she said, objective observation leads to internal awareness and joy in our children. And that's what we're seeing now that we are sort of broadening a little bit our reach in terms of community observers that we work with, that we get a lot of these really awesome feedback that their kids are really enjoying being out there and recreating and playing in the snow, but then you're adding that little bit of science component to it that can make it really interesting. And in particular, if you're a teacher and you're thinking of ways to mix up your teaching, right, by bringing the kids outside, it's a great way, and talk about the water cycle and the impact of snow. I mean, there's no better way than going out and measuring it, and then through CSO being able to provide a way of your students to analyze the data and also seeing where the data goes to, which is really interesting snowpack modeling products. So, so far, if we look at globally data that we have received to CSO, we're looking to date at 28,521 observations. This was a few days ago, so maybe it has increased by a little bit. But yeah, those observations have been submitted by 3,498 individual observers. So that's really amazing. This map here isn't even showing the entire globe. I can tell you that there are measurements on Hawaii, on Antarctica, very southern tip of South America, into Asia as well. But here I'm kind of focusing in on the United States because that is where we still have, of course, most of our participants. Like I mentioned, the project started in Alaska, in South Central Alaska, in the Thompson Pass area, but then it spread quickly to the Pacific Northwest. And as you can see here, we have a really nice concentration of observations on the East Coast as well that we're really grateful for. So if we're looking at the value of the CSO observations, I think this figure really sort of paints the picture pretty well. The three red dots that we see on this Google Earth imagery shot here are showing locations of snowtail sites, so classic weather stations that are measuring snow. And as you can see, those are kind of low, mid elevation, and they're not very many, right? In this area here near Snoqualmie Pass, there's only 3 of them, which, by Alaska standard is a lot, having 3 weather stations within that area. But then you have here all the CSO observations, and you can imagine how valuable these data points are, and some of them are in really high elevation. And what this CSO measurements do as well, they provide us data from both higher elevation, from steeper slopes, and also from more complex terrain. And these graphs here that Nina put together are really visualizing this to us. I think this is really great. It shows us the turquoise lines here in all 3 plots are data from snowtail sites. So you have from elevation in meters, you have, sorry, I moved my bars around here. Whoop, excuse me. You have terrain complexity, which is here given by an elevation standard deviation. And then you have slope angle. And you can see how the snowtail sites are, kind of drops off in elevation. There's nothing really above 3,500 meters. In terms of slope angle, you see that the very low slope angles that those snowtail sites are measuring from. And in terms of terrain complexity, also very benign terrain. Whereas the snowtail measurements reach into a lot more types of topography. So that's really great as well. And that kind of goes back to what I was mentioning earlier, looking at that snow distribution, high elevations, that we need these data points. And this plot here is just showing the model output from our snow model, comparing results that are, the dark blue line is showing the snow water equivalent output from one of our modeling domains here in 2019. The dark blue line is showing no snow observation assimilated in that model run. And then we have another run where we used just 1 CSO observation. And you can see here that brings the snow water equivalent up. The model output was underestimating the amount of SWE in this location. But what's really awesome as well, by being able to assimilate CSO observations, is that it also corrects back in time. So our modeling are providing output now almost near real time. It's about a 3 to 4 day delay that we can model right now. But when we get CSO observations, which are snow depth observations, we are able to backtrack back over the season as well, right? So of course it helps if we can get observations throughout the season. That would be even more accurate. But even getting some late season observations from an area helps to understand the snowpack evolution back in time. So we today have a product that we're very excited about. It's called mountainsnow.org. And so this is a separate website for you to go and check around. If we have time here at the end, I will show a little bit the various tools on this website. I want to highlight right away that this is a product that should be used on a computer or a laptop. It's built in Google Earth Engine, which doesn't function very well on a cell phone. So I can guarantee that you'll get quite frustrated if you try and use this tool on your cell phone. So yeah, go there on your computer instead. But what this is a near real-time model snow depth and SWE product. And this is where all of our modeling goes into. And we have defined modeling domains all across the United States. We now also have a domain up here in Alaska as of this year, which is really cool. But yeah, we have domains all across the United States that are really responding to where we have a concentration of CSO observations. So that's kind of the qualification to get a domain, is that you have to provide some data. So it's a data-driven approach. But what this shows here is we can look at various things on this website, such as snow depth, snow water equivalent, but also change in snow depth and snow water equivalent over the course of 3 days. And we can also compare that to SNODAS, which is that modeling product that I mentioned earlier on. And we can also look at comparison between the two products, and also the difference when CSO has been assimilated into the product or not. So there's a lot of different things you can play around with here on this mountainsnow.org website. This is an example just kind of showing a comparison between CSO and SNODAS. And you see here that the resolution is so much better with the CSO product. You really get that details in the high elevation terrain that we're looking at, which we know is also more accurate. All right, so now if we then talk a little bit more about our community-based observers, our citizen scientists are folks that come from very different backgrounds and have very different interests. These screenshots here are from the old Mountain Hub app. It had a photo, it had a camera feature in that app, which was kind of cool, that you could see them out participating. Some of them you see here are wearing CSO hats that they won in some of our contests, that we organize every year. And yeah, it's just really nice for us to see where folks are measuring snow, and it's also a way for us to do some data quality control. Because sometimes we can get really large measurements or really minimal, right? Like 0 snow depth, and having that photo feature was neat to look at those different values. And what the CSO product, I think I've made a case here that it's extremely valuable data for the modeling side of things, which helps enhance snow science and really helps provide more reliable products for water resource managers. But what we have realized over the years by running CSO now for 6 years, is that it's a great learning experience for our participants as well. And this is a quote from Bobby, who's been with us from the early beginning, and this quote really stuck with me. He said, "After 20 or so measurements, I started to feel like I was actually getting a better picture of snow distribution on the mountain in a way I would not have seen had it not been for the CSO project." And this is something I really feel with as well. If you have areas that you tend to recreate in the winter, you tend to go back to kind of the same spots to go skiing or snowshoeing or whatever you like to do, and you start to measure snow there year after year over the course of the season, seeing that change is really enlightening, and especially seeing it from year to year. It's not just like, oh, it seems like there's a little bit more snow. You can actually quantify that observation, and it's a really empowering insight. Natalie Afonina, also one of our ambassadors, she's an ice climber, mainly a mountaineer. And this is really what it comes down to, I think, that citizen science means ownership and contribution to scientific progress. I think that's true because, nobody owns science, and we can all contribute to science. And, with citizen science, we're really closing in that gap between what traditionally was, referred to as the public versus the scientific community. It's much more blurred in that. And so citizen science really lives in that fantastic gray zone between the public and academia. And with that, I think I'm pretty much done here with the with the presentation. I'd like to encourage you all to join CSO and try it out. We currently have a contest running. We run contests throughout the winter every year, and right now we have a contest called Snow Height Collection Contest. It's a very classic one, very easy to participate. You just need to submit as many snow observations as you can, minimum 100-meter apart, because you don't want folks to just go out and probe the snowpack to depth in one spot. We want a little bit more of a spread, but yeah, at least 100 meters apart. And we're only looking at measurements submitted in SnowScope for this particular contest. So I want to highlight that. And unfortunately, we have to restrict this also to United States only due to shipping restrictions for us. But we have some really cool prizes in the pot for this one, donated by Backcountry Access. They have been our sponsor now for many years and donate fantastic gear to us every year that we can give to our participants. So please join and participate in that contest. And then here on this slide too, we have all of our social media accounts, our website, communitysnowobs.org. We have a Facebook page, but I'd say we're a little bit more active on our Instagram account and our Twitter accounts. Those are on there as well. And then we'll see how we're doing with time here. I'm not really keeping track myself, but we have a little survey, I guess, here at the end. We already had you guys talk a bit about your snow memories in the beginning of this presentation, but I'd like to dig a little bit deeper into that. And so I want to hear again, use the chat to tell your favorite memory on snow. So now you have to be a little bit more specific and explain why that memory is important to you. And would you be able to recreate this memory today? So then we have to think about maybe a little bit how snowpack has changed since we were kids. I don't know how old you are that are here today, but maybe there has been some change since you were a kid. And we have some really nice CSO swag, and also we have some probes from Mammut that we're giving away for this little contest. So we're gonna pick 3 winners. I'll get together with Emma and Roland here after this event, and we'll pick 3 that we really thought were the best, I guess. And we'll send you Mammut probe, and we'll also send you some nice CSO hats, cap and beanie, and we have some ski straps. These are very useful for various things, not just to attach skis. And we also have some nice stickers. We have some sorry, my screen is blurred here, so they're little some really cool artsy stickers this year. So we'll send you some fun things if you want to take your time to share in the chat your favorite memory of snow. I can relate to the snow igloo memory that was shared there earlier on. I think that's my strongest memory, just playing out on the porch, all day and building snow tunnels in the snow. That was amazing. I grew up in Stockholm, Sweden, and I can tell you that for this past 10 years or so since I moved to Alaska, I rarely hear my parents talk about that there's any snow on the ground in the wintertime anymore. So it's pretty drastic, pretty crazy. Okay.
While we're waiting for our listeners to write in some information about their favorite memories and some of these extra questions here, I did want to bump up our Q&A as well. We have a couple questions that we can answer while we're waiting for answers in the chat about that. So Kirk asked a question about how is snowfall measured at the automated sites. So specifically with distinguishing new snowfall versus blowing new snow. Like, is there an issue with the new or the artificial snow, I guess?
Well, artificial, do you mean snowmaker snow or wind distributed snow? I guess that's
Kirk, I need your assistance here. Did you mean the
I'm assuming wind distributed snow, and that's really hard to wind
blown.
Yeah, that is very tricky to measure. Typically, snowtail sites are installed in locations that are a little bit protected. It's often a clearing in the trees, either at low elevation or high elevation, or mid elevation. But there can be a clearing in the trees, maybe some protected forests that are sort of protecting the snow from being too affected by wind. They use various sensors to measure snowfall. It can either be a sonic ranger sensor that is basically installed on a 90-degree arm poking out from the tower, and it's measuring the height from the sensor to the ground. So obviously that height will get reduced as the snowpack grows throughout the winter. Snow pillows is another type of measurement technique that I personally don't know too much about, but that's also a way of measuring snowpack depth and SWE as well, and that's also sometimes installed at these snowtail sites. They use different techniques, probably depending on also the topography and so around. But a lot of weather stations are installed also on ridges, right? Because that's where they would be out away from, for example, avalanche hazard. So putting them on a ridge is typically fairly safe, but that's also often where it's very windy. So putting a snow sensor there just doesn't make any sense, because it's not going to give you a reliable snow depth for the area. That would be just very locally right there.
Right. Does that mean it's best to take measurements right after it's snowed? It's very fresh.
For CSO, you mean?
Yes.
I would say it doesn't really matter, honestly. I mean, obviously, it's always interesting to see how much snow that just arrived with the storm. And in particular, if you have a few days after the storm with no precipitation, to go out again and then measure, let's say in three days again, then you'll see how that compaction occurs and how the snowpack is actually, settling, right? So you will get a little bit less deep snowpack after a few days. And that's also really interesting in the spring when we have really warm temperatures and we see that compaction happening very drastically. That helps us to really get a better idea of the snow melt and the snow thaw processes in the spring. So I'd say, it's for your personal learning experience, I would say, yes, if you know a snowstorm is coming, go out and measure snow and then measure after it's finished. And then again in a few days, then you get that really nice understanding of how that storm impacted the snowpack.
Awesome. Okay, good to know. A couple more questions for you. How do we measure in a dense forest if there are mounds from snow that fell from trees and lower spots where it's very variable? I know you mentioned across an area, a 1 meter distance.
Yeah, that can be a little bit tricky, because we do definitely encourage folks to measure snow in the forest as well. Snowpack in the canopy is a topic actually it's heavily researched, because we don't know very well how snow is distributed in the forest, and oftentimes with a lot of remote sensing products, we don't get very accurate values in the forest. So getting these ground truth observations in the forest is very helpful. But if it's very variable within 1 meter, circle, then maybe try and find an area that is a little bit flatter. But then of course we never know exactly how the ground looks like underneath the snow. Like you're saying here, there could be some mounds, mossy, maybe alders and so forth. It's pretty variable, but that's something that we will see as well, because we will be able to see where that measurement is from. And I guess I didn't mention that earlier when I talked about how to submit observations, but we want you to submit that observation when you're using propagation labs. It's accessing the GPS on your phone. So you want to submit that observation right there where you measured it, and that measurement will be geotagged. It might not upload right away if you're outside of cell phone coverage, for example. It will take to get back into cell phone coverage for it to sync. But it gets that geotag, and then we'll see, okay, well, this measurement is from a forested area. So we can then understand that it might be some variability.
I'm thinking like ways that you could adjust for that is if you know the location really well, you can already know about some flatter areas in the denser forest, so you can kind of mark it for yourself and just keep going back to the same place. But
right. If you know it from the summertime, absolutely, then you have an idea what it looks like underneath. And then if you get out early season when it's just minimal snow, then you can get a better idea as well. I wanted to mention as well is that, so Propagation Lab, like I mentioned, it's a very new partnership to us. And currently we don't have those observations being populated on our web map. But that doesn't mean that we're not getting the data. So I just want to encourage folks, because we have been receiving some questions about this. You can still use Propagation Labs. Actually, within the next week or so, that data will be on our website, and it will be, we will grab all the data going back as well. So it's not like if you submitted data back in December that data is gone. We will go back and repopulate from previous months as well. So I just want to say that if you're using Propagation Labs, and you don't see your measurement being populated on our web map, then don't worry. We will get that data in about a week or so.
Awesome. Okay, we are running a little bit low on time, so I'm going to run through a question from Rebecca, because there's a couple of particular questions, and then any extra questions we can reach out via email to make sure they get answered. But then we'll close out for the time being. Rebecca, thank you so much for those questions. I live in a coastal area, and we've had an unfortunate amount of rain this winter. When I take snowpack height measurements, how do I know I'm not hitting ice? Does this matter for your data?
Ooh, yeah, that is, oh gosh, ice layers are tricky. And yes, it does matter to our data, because we want the full snowpack depth. So if you are aware that there was some rain events that are now refrozen ice layers in your snowpack, we do encourage you then to make sure you're not hitting the ice. So that could sometimes involve having to dig down and dig through that ice to really get to the ground. But yes, that does matter because it is the full snowpack depth that we're looking for. Okay.
Would that be, I mean, would you have to break through the icy layers potentially?
Yeah, and I would say it's surprisingly how well probes actually can get through fairly thick layers of ice, actually. But I mean, if it's a lot, then you will break your probe trying to get through that. But if it's just kind of like crunchy, melt, like refrozen melt crystals, then typically the probe will get through that. Okay. But if it's thicker, then maybe if it takes too much time to dig through that, then maybe abandon that site and measure from somewhere else.
Gotcha. Do you have resources on the idea of like digging a hole? Like, does the community snow observations have to do, or like a step process for how to best do that with digging like a snow pit to get to the?
We actually don't have a snow pit digging tutorial. Maybe we should create one of those this winter.
Yeah, new idea.
Yeah, absolutely. But there are definitely techniques to dig that is a bit more energy conserving, if I put it that way, to save your back. A lot of avalanche educators teach about, digging efficiently in terms of avalanche rescue, and I'd say that would apply here as well when you're digging a pit.
Yeah. I wonder if that might be a quick search on YouTube to find someone who's giving quick instructions on that, Rebecca, or anyone else who is interested.
Yeah, and I will say too, we also have a YouTube channel. So if you search for Community Snow Observations on YouTube, we upload a lot of our tutorial videos there, and also some presentations that we give at various workshops and so on. You can watch those there as well. My partners Dave and Nina and Gabe, they all do really amazing presentations, and you can find those there as well. And they might be talking about a little bit different aspects of the product as well. So I encourage you to go and check those out as well if you want to learn more.
Excellent. There were a couple of questions about having assistance or contact with ambassadors. Do your ambassadors do like outreach in certain areas around the world, or is that data or is that information available to CSO observers?
Yeah, I mean, they are sort of the local representatives for the CSO project. So depending on where they live, they might be more or less engaged in various outreach channels there. Some of them are, for example, educators. So you might, see them teaching an avalanche course or something like that, and they might mention CSO in that capacity. But if there's a particular ambassador that you'd like to get a hold of, we can always contact them and see if we can link you up. That's no problem at all. They're typically very open to collaborate. So
excellent. Could you do us a favor and drop the request for info email that's best, or how to submit or a request like that to you? I don't know if that would be through your website.
Yes. Yeah, sorry, I did not put that on a slide here, but communitysnowobs@gmail.com is our sort of all contact email. You can also contact us through our website, of course, or DM on Instagram, send message there works as well. But yeah, communitysnowobs@gmail.com is our main email address.
Excellent. Awesome. Okay, you all had wonderful questions. I'm so excited for you to be involved in this. Kirk, I apologize. We'll get some answers for you, but actually I might be able to answer that question. How observations can be used to show to middle or high school students. That mountain, what was it called?
Mountainsnow.org.
Yes, mountainsnow.org. With all that data, I bet students would love to be able to see that and play with.
Yes, and I do also want to encourage you to go to our web map, so communitysnowobs.org, and then go to Snow Data, the Snow Data tab. There you have our web map with all the data points from all of our partners, and we have a few tools that you can use there as well. You can draw a polygon for certain areas and download data for just those areas, and you can run some statistical analysis on those data points, such as what elevation data points are from, how deep they were, and so on. That's really good, easy tools. If your students are fairly young, you can start there, and then from there go to mountainsnow.org, which will be a little bit more complex in order to understand what's going into mountainsnow.org.
That's awesome. Great. Okay, cool. Thank you for sharing all that information with us. We're a couple minutes over, so I'm going to close this out really fast. Since you have share control, can you actually just skip forward a couple slides for me? I'll let you know when to stop after this one. Okay, pause. Upcoming events. Go back. Awesome. Thank you. So we have 3 events coming up. We have this every week, so just keep track of it through the blog.scistarter.org link listed at the bottom there. That Roland will also drop in the chat. Upcoming, we have identifying wildlife in online images. That's using instant wildlife cameras. Then we have a Super Bowl special with our science cheerleaders. And then the next one on February 14th, Valentine's Day, we have a special for Citizen Sciences for Lovers. So very exciting time. We would love to have you all back for these next ones as well. So keep track of the ones that you're interested in, and we'd love to have you back. Thank you so much for joining us, Katreen. It was so nice to hear all this stuff. I did not realize how much data you could gather from what types of data were created out of all these observations. It was really interesting. And I know all the thanks a bunch and this is super helpful training, etc. Notes in the chat. We really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. It's been delightful to talk about snow. Thanks, everyone.
There is a survey link that you can take to let us know how we're doing or give us suggestions of whatnot. So if you go into or if you click on the link that Roland sends momentarily, you can also do that for us, unless you already sent it. He might have. Okay. Yeah, post-event survey. It takes 2 minutes, super quick. But otherwise, thank you all for being here. We're excited to see you next time, assuming you're back for more. Enjoy your observations of snow. I'm going to go ahead and end our live stream to Facebook. Bye, Facebook. And we'll see you all next time. All right.